All right, guys, welcome back to Children of Dionysus. Today's guest is Kevin Polay. He has optioned 25 scripts for Hollywood. He's a senior copywriter, director of content, graduate of St. John's University with honors, director of content, marketing expert, producer, Writers Guild of America. He's a member of the Boy Scouts of America. He's trained at the Wharton School. He's obviously a screenwriter. He's worked with some pretty big clients. Turn, the television show, Pop Culture, which is a documentary for fathers. Worked with the NBA, Bazooka Gum, Fanatics, and Flor de Caña. What's going on, Kevin? How are you?
Good, good. I've also done some work for writing episodes for Mindhunter, which
Nice.
is for David Fincher, and yeah, so and video games and everything else.
Yeah, you've had a pretty storied career and
Yeah.
all the stuff that you've been doing, man. Can you talk to us a little bit about where you are, where you're from originally?
I grew up in Huntington, New York, which is on Long Island, and yeah, it was pretty it was a pretty good place to grow up because it was like really walkable, and like I could just as ever since I was like 6 or 7, 8, my parents just let me just go walk wherever I wanted to and like go to the beach because I was like walking distance to the beach in Long Island in New York. And yeah, and just and it was also the time where the oversight was just like, they just let us go as long as we came back before like by dark, right? They're like, all right, and you're alive. They're like, okay, great.
So
They had
that's
no
not
idea
like an
all
urban
the
myth.
kids.
That's not an urban myth. That's a real thing.
They had no idea how much bad shit we were doing. We as long as we came back alive, like that's mattered.
Do you have any cool stories that you can share with us?
Oh my God. I mean, there's just so much in terms of like God. I mean, like we just the amount of times that we used to where I grew up, it was like across the water from Connecticut.
Okay.
And so we used to take either like I don't know, it depends what where we were, but there it like boating was a big thing there because we
Okay.
were like lived near the water. So and then we had like this little sailboat that my dad got. It was like a 14, 12 foot, 14 foot sailboat that was like left at the beach, and we would just take that out and like we thought we were like pirates and shit. Like we'd like we just go like up and down like this the coast, and there used to be this abandoned brick factory from like way in the early like 1940s. I think it was really active in for like World War one or two or whatever.
Yeah.
And just in terms of like they thought we might need it there, like some kind of outpost out there.
Okay.
And but it became this place where like all the kids would go, like they put up rope swings and like so you can like fly out into the water, and like so many people got fucked up like like landing on rocks and stuff. But that I mean that's what as kids we would just like we would just do like the dumbest shit, and like and it was great, and we all and most of us survived. So most of
Was there anyone that didn't?
us. Yeah, it's some friends who like yeah like would do like really extreme like was I had some friends that were really into extreme sports, and
Mm.
like one or two like you know died just kind of doing that kind of stuff.
I'm sorry, man.
Um, yeah, but I mean, I think everyone's kind of had loss, and it's kind of part of life.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's something that yeah I've become very comfortable with. But
Wait.
it's also what's giving me my urge in terms of like death, like as being part of life.
Yeah.
And it's what keeps me like really energized every day is that I want to make the most out of my time here.
Was
Because
that
I Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just because people like very close to me, like my older sister passed away when I was like much like younger,
Oh wow.
and her and I were like the out of the four kids in my family, like we were the closest to each other.
Wow, I'm sorry, man.
So yeah, but I mean, it it made me like value like the preciousness of like every day in life and other people, you know.
Was that something that you came like was that a decision that you came to on your own through observation, or was that something that was instilled in you?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, my parents were very, yeah, I got lucky in the parent department, like compared to like a lot of friends. Like, I would go to some friends' houses, and the way that like, I saw their parents were either they were just really remote and not engaged and involved.
Mm.
For me, like my mom could be too engaged, right? Sometimes, right? But I loved it. But she's such a sweet person that I was like, okay, mom, can you just, it's enough, right? It's like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then my dad was like my best friend. He loved, he was an artist, and he had his own like business, and he was insanely creative. And
Yeah.
so he's the one that gave me that, made me feel like on the creative side of things that like just go for, he was like just he encouraged me to just like go for it and to just follow those instincts.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you're obviously very, very creative. I think to be able to do all those things, to do it at a proficient level, takes a level of creativity and sort of a kind of an engine or some sort of a factory in the mind. Were you always that way from as a little kid, or was that something that you ended up refining as you got older?
In terms of like the creative part of it
Yeah, the
or
output
the
of it, like the creativity, the like sitting down and actually doing the work. Like some kids are super disciplined that way, but some
yeah.
people end up developing it later in life.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like for me, so like I always loved people. Like I always had interest in like other people.
Mm,
I wasn't necessarily always as outgoing and loud as like the rest of my friends,
yeah,
because I was also like very much into sports as well as like art. So, so there was this definitely weird um, dynamic where with all my friends who are like, super, super hardcore, like athletes who's also like, in high school, like getting like drinking and taking drugs, trying, experimenting with drugs, like whatever we were doing when we were kids. But I was always like the one that was like a little bit more like, I love these guys, these are my friends, but I'm not gonna, I never, I was like pretty good at like not just going down the road of like doing something I wasn't comfortable doing for some reason, and sometimes they'd be like, come on dude, just fucking right, just try it.
mm-hmm.
And like I was just like, yeah, and I just yeah, I don't know how I turned out. I don't know if that was fear, right,
Yeah.
or something else, but I just like I was comfortable not always like just following the leader, you know.
Do you think it's because you had like good parents at home that gave you support? It sounds like gave you support and stuff like that, and were there. Do you think that that helped you sort of?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's that's why I really, yeah, like I said, I just feel like fortunate, because I like, my good friend that lived two houses up the block, like, he like later on in life he revealed like how abusive like his family was
Mm.
and stuff. So it's like that kind of stuff, and it just made me really, kind of appreciate. what I have, but also it makes me also then always think about like, well, what are people that are going through a hard time? Like, say if someone shows up and they're like all angry and shit, it gave me compassion
Okay.
for people that are like struggling or hurt, and like maybe someone's a dick to me, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe he's just having a bad day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Is that was there any inkling like maybe that other stuff was going on with other people possibly? Did you were you how aware were you when you were growing up that you were in this sort of supportive, it sounds like good, relatively healthy family when other people clearly around you, whether we're in the same neighborhood, went to the same school, clearly your
yeah,
friend who was your neighbor was struggling somehow. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So, well, yeah. I think it just, I don't know. There's something about the fact that we were just left alone to do what, like, because my mom was working and my dad was working in the
Yeah.
city, and my mom had like her own business that she was running. So, like, it was nice to have the independence, but the independence also, allowed us to get into like, you know, do a lot of stupid shit,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, you're talking about like compassion and stuff. So you've been a screenwriter for how long now?
So I moved out here in, I had an interest in it in the late 90s.
Okay.
I stood like for fun. I took a class. Um, yeah, I just, when I lived in New York for a long time when I was practicing law, and I was just looking for stuff to do, um, I don't know. I always like to take classes. I've always like been into like school and stuff, and so I took a screenwriting class
Hmm.
uh, in this place in like Lower Manhattan, and essentially I started taking a class. It was like a month long class, like every weekend for like a month or two,
Yeah.
and I just wrote a story, and then the teacher, the screenwriting teacher said to me, I brought in like my first, I don't know, I wrote like maybe like 40 pages of like start of a screenplay, and in front of the class, she accused me of that. She said, did you write this? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, really? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said it was too good for me to have just written that. And I was like, and I go to her, I go, well, thank you very much. Now you've taught me everything I need to know, is that like you're not the teacher for me. Right? Like it was insane. Instead, like it seemed like she was jealous because now she's teaching screenwriting, but she clearly didn't have a track. She had no track record. Like I looked her up. It's not like she like sold a bunch,
Right.
like sold a bunch of stuff, and that like really just drove me. I was like, I'm gonna show this. I'm gonna show her, like, right. And like, so it became like this little, that like, yeah, this thing for me. It was just weird. It was a weird response from a teacher, because it seemed like that she should be, more encouraging. And yeah, and she accused me of like plagiarizing somehow, like that I had stolen it from somewhere.
Do you
So
do you think that there are a lot of teachers? I've had some experience with that. Um, was this sort of in academia? This was sort of attached to a university somehow, or was this just a woman who was giving classes?
I mean, I mean, I know she was a, so I think she was also a teacher at NYU,
Mm,
and then I think she's probably doing this for extra cash or something, right? Like teaching these things on the weekend.
yeah.
And so so I don't know, maybe there was just this kind of more elite kind of, coming from NYU vibe thing going on, and she thought like right, and then yeah, then just it was just weird. I mean, I didn't get it at the time, and I still don't. Like for me, like there's nothing better with like when see someone like have a great story,
Mm,
but she must have had some other personal crap going on, because you know what I mean. Like for her to be that, like for that to be her instinct, that like I somehow, like I don't even know what plagiarizing someone, like something that I've created out of whole cloth even means. you know?
right. Um,
Yeah.
do you feel like maybe she was frustrated?
With probably her own career,
Yeah.
probably. She probably hated being a teacher. She probably was just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, maybe she'd rather be home, you know, or maybe she'd like, again, it's like I don't even know what her track record was in terms of like if she ever sold anything. Like it was never even brought up, which I think would have been a good thing for us, so we actually understood her credentials.
Mm,
It would have been one of the first things that, yeah, she never really talked about. Like I Yeah, kind of think of it like she never talked about like any work that she's done. So it would have been nice to have known, like, what were genres did she focus in on, or how did she get started, or right, like all that kind of stuff.
do you, this reminds me a little bit of that old quote, and I don't know how true it is, but because quotes are just, they're just said and people don't necessarily, they just sort of parrot them. But those who
Right.
can't do teach. Uh,
Yes.
do you believe in that?
I do believe in it, um, even despite the fact that I am considering, like, I am now currently teaching,
Mm,
right? So, but I'm teaching because I actually really like to teach, but I also like to interact. I like the interaction that I have with the people that I'm helping,
yeah.
because it inspires me as well. And
Mm,
and 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 so the difference was with some of these teachers were, yeah, it was that jealousy. Like they weren't self-assured enough to just be the teacher, and right, and just honor that person, even if they're younger and less experienced, and they're writing more kick-ass shit than you. Like I have no pro like, so for me, if I see a great writer, I might be like, oh my God, that writer is amazing and so much better than me. But I'm not going to feel jealous. I'm going to like appreciate the talent, right? And then it's going to inspire me to just try to like, oh, like just either work harder or do something different,
yeah.
right? But I'm not going to like go like rain down on someone, you know?
Where do you think the shift is then, right? Because theoretically, you're both writers. Now you're both teaching, but your perspective is to say, celebrate that person, inspire, I want to work harder. And this individual's is like, well, trying to poo-poo it or tear it down. What do you think? Yeah, what do you think the mindset shift is, and why is that why is that your response as opposed to the other one?
I I mean, I think it's because like my dad was like a true creative,
Okay.
and and he worked really hard, and I remember like the hours he would be putting in. Like he'd work in the city all day, and then he'd come home, and he was like a designer, and he was had his own business, and he was really creative, and he did copywriting like back in the day for like Pepsi. Like
Nice.
he was a copywriter for like, and but he just embodied in me like that creative spirit. He was like, yeah, it was never like, study your math, study your math, study your math. He's like, as long as I was just doing what I was, you know, doing, like my parents were more focused on my happiness
Mm,
and with my siblings, like they just wanted us to find something that we love, like find things that we love and to like pursue it. So you know, and I feel, yeah, I guess I feel really lucky that I had, you know, parents who were, you know, who were that way. And I know for my father, his father was apparently like kind of an asshole. So my grandfather, and
yeah.
so I think my dad went opposite of his dad. And
Depends
his
on the opinion.
mother was, yeah, and his mother was, she was great as a grandmother, but she wasn't the most affectionate person. So I think then my dad kind of, you know, took his childhood, right? And he said, I'm going to flip it for my kids and be more encouraging and supportive.
How common do you think that is? It sounds like a pretty common story. It's like one generation does one thing. Well, I'm going to do the opposite. And then you give your kids sort of the things you didn't have. You're kind of giving them the childhood you never got as opposed to the childhood. Obviously, it worked out
Yeah,
for you. You know what I mean? But uh,
right.
you know what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like even now, like, you know, I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. And like, you know, I talk to my daughter every day and like I talked to her this morning and she's, you know, and it's, yeah, but it keeps me, you know, and I really have made an effort to encourage her creativity.
Nice.
And where my ex and I weren't always on the same page with that, but my daughter is a better artist and a better creative than I was at her age. And I look
Oh
at her
wow.
stuff and I'm like, oh my God, she's like, yeah. She like her talent is like, yeah, as a father, it makes me like she sends me her work and I'm just like, oh my God. And I thought I was an artist. And I'm looking at her and she's like 14 and doing like creating this work that I'm just like, oh my God. So, you
I
know,
love I
yeah.
love sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. And it just and yeah, she just blows me away with her talent. And like so I can never imagine like how people, you know, because I've seen it in other households, how like, you know, when I don't know that like they take like art or artistic endeavors like it's not real, like it's like just like play or something.
Sure,
But
sure.
it's, I mean, but what would life be like without art
Horrible.
and stories? And it would be horrible, right?
You ever seen like pictures of like old Soviet like buildings and architecture? Like there's no
Yeah,
beauty, there's no art, there's no art there. You know what I mean? Like there's no aesthetic
yeah,
beauty, you know?
yeah, yeah. It's all very like industrial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's dead, it's cold. It's even looking at the pictures, there's no uh uh inspiration there, as opposed to juxtaposed to the old school pictures of like empirical Russia. I'm a fan of just Russian history and stuff like that. I love Dostoevsky and
yeah,
Tolstoy and Chekhov and all these guys. And one of my bucket lists is to go to the Winter Palace in the summer. Obviously, I'm not going to St.
yeah.
Petersburg
That'd
anytime
be
between
amazing.
November and March. What?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to go to Russia. That'd be cool.
That'd be really cool. It sounds like your father. So it's interesting that you said your father, in essence, encouraged and fostered that creativity in you, which you had a proclivity for it. You have a talent for it. It really seems like what we always need is just someone to say, keep going in that direction. Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Like I remember as a kid, like we'd go out back and we had like these trees that had like acorns falling
Mm-hmm.
off, and my dad was like, um, my dad picked one up and he was like, you want to try to eat these things?" And I was like, I don't know, sure. And he brought out like these hammers, and I remember being like, I was probably like 6, 7, 8 years old, and we would smash them, and they would like, I mean, the shells are like really hard, and like the acorn would like fly across the backyard, and then but we'd eventually like, and then he was, because he wanted to eat the meat inside, because he said it's like it's a nut, we can eat
Yeah.
it. Fucking horrible, by the way. It's disgusting, right? But it was like, but we still sat out there. We like, he was just was like, I don't even know. We didn't. I don't even know if he knew like whether or not acorns are poisonous for people. But but he was just like, I don't know. Let's just try it. And like, so that's the kind of father I had. He was just like, he like encouraged me to just try everything,
Nice.
just like to try it. And so that's why I became like, just I would just, yeah, I would love to like experiment with, and always be open to like possibilities and opportunities. And yeah, and I'm always kind of leave myself open to that,
So you're
as opposed to,
so go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, because some people will have like get very like much into a lane, and
Mm,
then they just, and then and sometimes they might need to like switch lanes or consider switching lanes,
right.
where it might be something else, and maybe because they like the idea of something, they're going to pursue it, but maybe it's not where their talent or their real passion lies.
How do you identify that?
Um, I think I mean, I think I just, again, I think my dad just taught me to trust like my instincts,
Okay.
and and um and because he was always like, look, if you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's not bringing you joy, like, stop. Right. Unless obviously there are things in life we all have to do, right, that
Yeah.
we don't love doing, but so yeah, so it's like, it's finding that balance, right?
What would you say to someone who maybe didn't have that, which I would say is luxury might be too much of a loaded word, but you had that support. Maybe somebody comes from a household where their instincts, their natural proclivities, their bliss, in the words of Joseph Campbell, was dissuaded,
Yeah.
or they were moved away from that. Because you got artists who maybe did have that, but many artists that I've spoken to, actors especially, someone didn't give us a hug, someone didn't tell us they loved us, and it's like, that's why you're on the stage. It's like, love me, give me validation, because no one saw me. I mean, obviously you do it because you love it, but there are parts of that in it for sure.
There's parts of that, and I can also see like my brother was a dick to me, right? Even though I love him today, my brother was like, as a kid, like he would like terrorize me,
Was he older
right?
brother?
He was my older brother, and for up until I was probably 8 or 9, like we slept in like a same bed, like room, and he
Mm.
used to tell me the scariest fucking stories at night. Yeah, he's like 3, 4 years older than me, and he would tell me the most fucked up stories, and before going to bed, and I used to like, oh my God, he would tell me that he told me this story about, it's just the weirdest story to tell, but like, he talked about that there was he said something about like a fat, naked, hairy woman was outside of our window, and she was there to come get me. And he would, and I was like 6 years old, right? And I was like horrified, and I was like, and like, I was just like, oh my God, I could not. I mean, I didn't sleep for like 6 years.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah.
So every
Yeah,
night you were terrorized with this image of this woman coming to get you.
yeah, and floating and like float. She was apparently floating outside the window, like
But
and
why
like
did you look outside to see if she was there?
no, I was too scared because he would just, I was like, I'm not looking at some witch floating outside. like,
Oh
like,
god.
oh,
Siblings are horrible. They're just the worst.
oh my God. But look, but maybe that's the thing that got me into storytelling because he was like trying to like he was just maybe that's the origin.
Right.
It's for me to be like, wait, it's just a story, right? like
So,
eventually I was like, uh,
so did
yeah,
eventually were you just like woke up or you did what how did you get over the
I mean,
not naked hairy
I
woman?
mean, it took it took a while. I think I had to, we when we moved from that because we moved from that house
Yeah.
because our family outgrew it just in terms of like number of kids and like yeah and then we went somewhere else and then my brother was insane like he would I don't know what happened to my brother but he would always want me to like sleep in bed like he was scared so like he was scared and then he would always like threaten me that if I didn't sleep with him, he was going to beat me up. And like, and there's nothing weird going on, right? He was just, I think he was just literally scared to be in a dark room alone.
Right.
And it's funny, I haven't talked to him about that. I like now that I think about it, like as an adult, I've never circled back, and now it makes me want to have that conversation with him.
It's
Like,
wild.
yeah. But again, it's those powers of stories because like they're like that, and that's why I brought up my brother is like maybe the idea for me to be this storyteller is like was maybe he was part of my inspiration
Mm,
because as I got older, I realized, oh, these are just stories, even though I was scared of them. But it's by a certain age, like maybe that just was working beneath the surface somehow to then inspire me like oh I could just make shit up okay like right and I can make shit up that can actually scare people or I can make shit up that makes people laugh or inspires people right and I don't know so maybe that's where I got kind of the impulse
nice.
was to like, take
How do you think that
control
translates to real life?
in terms of this like the storytelling or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you were six, you couldn't sleep for 6 years. He
oh right
traumatized you, terrorized you for
yeah
more than half a decade. But that wasn't a story you read in a book. That was something your brother told you that actually affected it had a real
right
life consequence to it. So how do you think that affects people in real life in terms of stories, either other people tell them or the stories they tell other people?
oh I think it you know, yeah, like I think stories can inspire and I think stories can inhibit.
Mm,
You know, like if someone's because there, you know, as we know, there are people that will tell people stories to keep them in a certain place or to keep them down or to, right, depending on like if they're jealous or if they're right. So it's like all these human emotions and behaviors and this like that lean on the negative side, like you know, yeah, like, and I've been, you know, and I think we've all kind of experienced like where someone just shows up for whatever reason and they can't just like be happy for
mm,
you know, you know, I've come across and look, more often than not, I think people are like, I think more often than not, I think people are generally good. I give people definitely the benefit of the doubt. But sometimes, you know, you come across people that aren't, you know, and then those are the people that I, you know, very quickly just decide not to engage with. and and yeah, so it's just a choice, because I think that the stories that we tell ourselves, and then the stories that we let into our lives that other people are telling themselves, or you know, I think it's just, um, yeah, we just have to kind of, uh, yeah, I think like when someone's being toxic, and when someone's not, and when someone's genuine. But
How
some people are kind of slippery.
sorry, some people are what?
Yeah, but some people are kind of slippery.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, like my older brother can be, still to this day, can be very slippery.
Mm.
He doesn't always, yeah, he doesn't like to be vulnerable. And so I'm always like, John, like, I don't know what you're talking about. like just be direct. Like, what do you want me to do something? Like, right? Yeah.
How do you, because it isn't always easy to know and to see. Some people are very sophisticated in their slipperiness, in their
Yeah.
machinations, the manipulations, the Machiavellianism. And I agree with you. I think overwhelmingly people are good, but
Yeah.
good people still do bad things or evil things, or things out of fear, out of whatever, right? How do you
Yep.
personally identify? Is there an example where you were like, you mentioned your brother, where maybe somebody was doing that to you and maybe you listened to them, but then somehow you figured out maybe this isn't the best person to listen to. Maybe this isn't a good story for me to ingest. And then what did you do to actually remove yourself from that, or kind of, because I feel like there has to be some sort of a cleansing as well. Because if you're accustomed to hearing a story, you have to kind of have to unlearn it sometimes if you've been living
Yeah.
a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I think that for me, it took a little bit more of obviously age,
Okay.
and then like, my brother's the one that got me a little bit more into fitness, and one of my older cousins, and then like, I eventually, like, my brother just, didn't didn't have a healthy lifestyle at all. He didn't play sports. I played a lot of sports,
Mm.
and then so at a certain age, then I just like surpassed my brother in terms of that stuff. My brother was just like more into like getting like high and fucked up, and like that. And then, I was just like just more motivated also, because like the people that I was like hanging out with, to just, like creative pursuits was always something, like it was always part of my life. Um and like I said, like my dad definitely instilled in me like a confidence to just trust my creative instincts.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you grew up in the same home and yet you
Hmm.
made specific choices and then he made other choices, right? Same parents,
Yeah.
same father. So I'm curious to know, there must be something in you where you process literally the exact same circumstance and you said, I'm actually going to go in this direction, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important, obviously, to acknowledge the father, but clearly you were smart enough, or you were cognizant enough, or awake enough, or you observed enough to say, I'm going to move here as opposed to here. And you continue to
Yeah.
do it. Like it didn't just stop. You said you surpassed your brother eventually and you recognized that stuff and you chose not to do it.
Yeah. 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 And it wasn't always, and it wasn't, and it was not always easy, because like, because there were times when, some like as a friend group, we would keep, like, kids can get, like, boys, we can be really fucking hard on each other,
Oh, yeah.
right? Give each other
Savage.
shit. Yeah, like you're playing a game of basketball, and then all of a sudden it's like, fucking sometimes a fight breaks out because like, you're just, maybe you're playing too hard and someone gets fucking pissed off or gets an elbow, and then like, right. And you're just like, you know And it's when, yeah, it's interesting, like also that just the dynamics and differences between men and women, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well, you and I had spoken about this before. I live in New York now. I'm originally from here, moved away and came back. But I used to be a bar mitzvah dancer and used to work in Long Island. So
oh, that's right.
I've been to more
Yeah,
bar mitzvahs than pretty much any Jewish person in New York City. At
right.
least 75, 80, I don't know, a bunch of them. But I used to work in Long Island, and I only I only hung out with people from my Long Island coworkers one time, and that was like enough. These are the hardest working people I've ever met in my life, but the most savage party. Like it was wild. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So talk to us a little bit about that. Like, there's clearly a hardcore work ethic, but there's clearly sort of like this very aggressive thing. So how do you make that work with the artistic where there's a little bit of flowery, whatever? Like how does that combine in you?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because yeah, like yeah, the amount of fights that my my friends would get in, like we'd go downtown in Huntington in the town I grew up in, and like I remember they would like pick fights with everyone, and they were my friends because we played sports together, and they were my neighbors and everything like that. But I wasn't like a fighter, like right. If when fights broke out, I was like, no, no fucking thank you,
Right.
right? And I would like kind of walk away, which was hard, right? Because you're feeling like you're like, partially I'm like, yeah, maybe I should be there, but I'm like, I don't want to get punched in the face,
Yeah.
right? And I don't even know what we're fighting about, right? So like what are you fucking? This is stupid, right? And then so like then my friends would all get like the shit kicked. Yeah, they'd either kick the shit out of someone or get the shit kicked out of them.
Right.
And then right, and then everyone would be like, like preparing their damage and like, but it was like just like it was yeah, it was intense, and I don't know if that's just like suburban life and like just not respect, just like feeling like you can do anything.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from, or it's, and I do know that some of them, had parents that were really tough on them
Sure.
and abusive. So it's, so it's, but no one really talked about that stuff then, like really talked about it. So, but it's like, but I think we were all very much aware of each other's like, like pain and where they're, because we were, yeah, it was, I don't know, it was weird.
Yeah. Oh, I
It's
hear
hard to
you.
explain. Yeah.
Well, it was when I was hanging out and I was working in Long Island. I grew up in a place. Well, I moved to a place called Coral Springs in Florida, and then
Mhm.
I went to like Long Island and hang out with. I was like, this is the exact same thing, only it gets cold here. So there's
Right.
like uh, to your point about sort of the suburban thing, there were very similar stories kind of where I was growing up, a lot of sports, a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that you wouldn't think in an environment like that, but it just, maybe it was the boredom, maybe it was just like that thing where it's like we can just do whatever. I'm thinking about a movie like American Graffiti. You ever seen that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like there's very
Right.
much sort of like, was it a little bit kind of like that? I saw that movie. I was like, oh, that feels very similar to sort of Americana, middle America to me. You know?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I can see that definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you became an attorney. How long were you practicing law for?
So I graduated law school in 94,
Okay.
and then I practiced until 99. I worked for the Brooklyn DA's office
Oh wow.
for a while. Yeah, that was my first internship, and then I got offered a job there. And then but then I didn't feel very good about, like, I was winning a lot of cases and I didn't
Hmm.
feel very good about the ones that I won. I was just winning because I was a better lawyer. And so then I kind of lost, I just didn't feel good about it.
May I ask why?
And then so, well, yeah, just because like, because I worked, I worked really hard. Like in law school, like I won like a bunch of like national like debates,
Hmm.
and I was like on an executive board for like our moot court, which is like a trial, like international like or national they would have trial competitions like throughout the country,
Hmm.
and like so I won like a bunch of like national tournaments in 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 mock trials and stuff, and then when I came out, it was just very natural to me, and I was winning cases because, and it's kind of what inspired me to be a screenwriter, and because I realized that like I started orchestrating and writing my case and how I was going to present it. I saw it like I was basically acting like a lawyer in a movie, where I knew I was going to sit because I wanted to like engage. Like I knew like to the moment, like I knew like at this point I'm going to sit on the table, right? Or at this point I'm going to get in like real close to the juror and like maybe sit like on the edge of the railing. And just because right, to just be like, hey, we're in this together, right? And to like create, right? And like,
So you would
and so
rehearse like exactly
well,
where
yeah, I just kind of knew, yeah, and so I would memorize. So I would have like my closing argument like down, right, and like, and there was there's one case that it was the last case I tried. My my first cousin was she was gay, and she lived with her. She had a female partner, and her husband, and she was, but she had her ex-husband who was like a chief, like very high up in the New York court system.
okay.
And so it was the day before I moved to LA to become a screenwriter,
Okay.
right? And she's like, I need you. Like my lawyer, like bailed on me. And so like 2 days before she had this thing, and I was leaving to move to LA.
Right.
She asked me if I could represent her in court. And so I go in, I'm like, sure. I was like 24 years old or something, right? And I walk in, and her ex-husband was like really high up in the New York State judicial system.
Right.
I walk in, he's got six lawyers at his table from one of the biggest, best law firm in New York. And then it's me, right? And I'm literally going. I have a U-Haul on reservation, and I'm leaving the next day to move to LA. And so I go into this court, and like, and basically the dispute between my client, my cousin, who was they were lesbian, they were gay, they were both women that lived together. So my and And so she told me a couple things about her husband and like what he would get like mad about or complain about,
Hmm.
right? And so like I get her ex-husband gets on the stand. He's got six lawyers from like the biggest law firm in New York, and I'm leaving to fucking California the next day. And then I go, so um, you say in your complaint that your ex-wife is, said that said really nice. She was really mean to you, and she would always put you down, and she would always do this stuff, right? And I was like, well, can you give me an example of like what kind of things she would say? And he would go, and he goes, she would call me fat. And so I look at him, I look him up, I look him down. He's a big fucking dude. He's a
He's
fat fucking dude. And I go, and I just look him up and down, and I just give like a little smirk, and I say, okay, well, you know, you're you're a little overweight. And right. Right.
not wrong.
And he's beyond it, right? So and then and then she got and I go and I go, okay, and what else did she say about you?
Yeah.
She has and she said, I'm bald. Look at the top of his head. He doesn't have a fucking ounce of hair on the top of his head. And I go, and I just look and I smirk again. And I look at the top of his head, like I'm clearly like looking at the top of his head. I look at him, I look at the judge, and I'm like, okay. And then I go, and then I was like, and then the last thing I go, okay, and then what else would she say to you? And she said, and he said that I'm stupid. And I just go, I put my hands up like this and I go, well, something's going on here. And he stood up and screamed and he goes, you're gonna, and he's yelling at me, right? And then the judge goes to this guy who's high up in the court system and he goes, you better sit down. You're gonna now come back into my chambers and we're gonna settle this. And then like the wife, I got the wife everything she wanted.
Oh wow.
Because he showed his true color. Like I knew because she told me he was like a narcissist and that about like his hair, about like all this stuff. And so he wasn't even about whatever the fuck they went to court for. I just knew that once he showed his true colors, like that the judge is going to just be like, fuck this guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
pretty
it was good.
incredible.
And then I moved to LA the next day to start screenwriting. Like, I guess I could tell stories. I don't know.
Uh, you sound like an actor, man. Like, you're plotting all that shit out. I'm going to do this at this part. Blah, blah, blah. That's great. That sounds hilarious, man. That sounds great. Did you ever write that?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I mean, because part of what in undergrad, I did a lot of like creative writing.
Mm.
I was always doing like a lot of that, and then yeah, I mean that was definitely like my favorite thing. But for me, it rolled over into like, if I was taking a class in like history, like I just because again, history is storytelling, right? You're you're just so yeah, I don't know. It was just always like a thing for me.
Wow.
Like
So
yeah.
you had this initial sort of script that you wrote for the woman when in the class, and you had that reaction from her. Did you ever produce that script?
Uh no, I mean I actually have a copy of it somewhere. I can't even it was can't even remember what the name is now. Just because I've worked on like so much stuff since then.
Yeah.
Um oh, well the first one I ever well the first one I actually like wrote like to completion and then sold was this script called The Scorpion and the Frog.
I
And
love it.
it was based on the have you ever heard that story about
Yeah, the
the
fable. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
fable? So what we did was we took it was a story about a movie about an inveterate gambler who's like fucking over like the Chinese mob and the Italian mob, and like it all takes place in like New York, and they're gonna rob a bank, and it's like this whole like big heist thing, and yeah, so me and my former friend of mine from law school,
Hmm.
we just I told him about the idea. I'm like, I have this idea, I want to write it. He's like, um, oh well, I have a computer because I didn't have a computer. You know, it was like before it was like the late '90s or whatever the hell it
Yeah.
was. Like, and he's like, well, that's a really good idea. Uh, and I have a computer and you don't. So do you want to do can I write it with
Oh my God.
you?
That's leverage, man.
Yeah. So we ended up, so I was like, yeah, I guess you have me cornered. So no, but he was also he like we used to work, we went to law school together. So and I knew he was a really good storyteller. So yeah, and we wrote this script like on weekends and like, and at that time I was living in on the west side of Manhattan, and I
Hmm.
lived in like a building that was four apartment buildings, and in each like there were in all these big loft spaces that we converted
Hmm.
into like and they were all friends of mine from high school. And I was like, I never want to leave here. I'm never leaving. But then my when we had sent out like 100, we had mailed out 100 um, packages with our script to every agency like that we could find in LA
Hmm.
and and then we went, and then we also, and then at the same time we then when that was happening, then we decided to fly out to Sundance with a stack of our like we had our first screenplay that we wrote, the Scorpion and the Frog thing.
Right.
And when we decided, like, fuck it, let's just we got a flight to Sundance, and we got online for some movie. It was like the Anna Chung movie, the like the porn star it was like the, it was like the early 90s or some mid 90s,
Hmm.
and gave this guy back cuts online, and he happened to be a manager, and we happened to have like 20 copies of our script, and we handed it to him, and we're like, here, well, we're a screenwriter. Right.
Yeah.
And then so 2 weeks later, we got a call from the manager who said, I read your script, I really like it, I'd like to talk to you guys. And
Wow.
then at the same time we had sent out a letter to this other agent that he was new at this agency in LA, and I guess a more senior partner had just like got fired, but he saw our script on the top of his pile of projects they left behind,
Right.
that the fired agent. But he figured since it was on top of the pile, it must be good. So he decided to open it and read it. And then that guy ended up, he was like, he loved the script so much, he called us. So like the week after the manager reached out to us, then this agent reached out and said, I'd like to represent you guys. Are you interested? And so then that was our like team that we had built like after that, So yeah, so and for us, it's also like I think, and the lesson for that is when I teach people is like we didn't just sit there and like wait for it to happen.
Hmm.
It we printed up like we with our with our own on our own dime, we flew out to Sundance to go meet people. Like fuck it, right? Because we didn't know how we were gonna like break into the business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then and then we just met people and we made contacts, and it just taught me that like if like just sitting in your apartment or home but not reaching out and doing that other stuff to make like meaningful connections with people. I mean, it's really how like this industry works.
Yeah.
because everyone really, most, for the most part, I mean, obviously if there are a lot like tyrants in the business and stuff, but like overall, like I think people in this industry are creative, good people, right? And they just want to work with good people and people who are like work hard and and I think that so I think that too many people give up or don't try to like figure out angles to create for themselves to
Hmm.
get that introduction that they with like the executive that or the filmmaker or the actor, right? Like to just like I think it never hurts to ask. I guess it is the way that and that's something that my father always used to say to me. Never hurts to ask. And so I've always been very comfortable asking people, like just being like direct if I want something, or to try to find a way that would encourage someone to want to work with me, right? To like find that angle, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. I think that it's very valuable advice to have. I totally agree that I can only speak from an actor's perspective and producer, and I've done other things, but there's a passivity that can set in the creative arts from
100%.
experience because you're waiting for an agent, or you're waiting for an audition, or you're waiting for a callback, or you're waiting for the setup, or you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and then you just think, oh, well, I have the agent there, I just chill, or I have the whoever, I
Right.
just they're gonna call me when they haven't, and it's like I remember when I first decided to pursue it right out of university, and I came back to New York City. I had an agent. Her name was Barbara Andriotta. She's dead now. She died maybe 10 years ago, but she has her agency still around. And she sat me down, and I think I was 24. And she goes, Laris, I really like your look. I think you're really talented. I'm very excited to work with you, but I want you to know something. I take 10% of whatever it is that you make, which means that at the very least,
Yeah.
you're responsible for 90% of the work that you bring in. And then she leaned in real close. She goes, really? It's 100%. And then she sort of backed up. Right. And it was like she was trying to prime me for how to be an initiator in this industry, a producer in this industry, and really go out and get what I need as opposed to just sitting back. And I thank her forever for that, wherever she is, because ever since then, I've just been producing, asking, trying to go out there. And I definitely could always be better, but it's like, I wish more people, more actors understood that, more creatives understood that. Because so
Yeah.
much resentment sets in because you're like, I'm so talented and brilliant, but no one knows it. Well, how are they going to know it? You're not marketing anything. You're not going.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it's great that you went because also it's like you did it not only in creating the thing, right? You literally told the universe by go booking you didn't know what you were going to find at Sundance. You booked your ticket and then you showed
Yeah.
up with the thing with the expectation that something would come of it. It's like you moved the universe and made room for yourself in it by literally penetrating space, going through space and doing that, which I think is like it's a good image for people to have. Like you just go because you didn't know, right? Like when you booked the Sundance thing, you had no idea, right?
No, no, no idea. And yeah, and it was yeah, and but it's also what made it felt like at the time when I got there, like fuck, it's like it was meant to be. Like this guy Todd Sharp was his name. He was he was an amazing manager for us, and he and like without him, like I mean, yeah, I guess the other, maybe something would happen with the agent, with just the agent, but like the combination of the two was like, I think that's what really allowed us to, because like we just tried to make introductions everywhere, and then we actually ended up like having some options because I guess that first screenplay we wrote was that good that it resonated with people.
So you're saying you had like
So
this cheerleader, this ambassador, this representative of the thing that you could already do. Is that sort of
uh
what it was?
well yeah, I mean, yeah, because they both really believed in it, and then
Mhm.
we kind of uh created introduced them to each other,
Okay.
and and they ended up going off and representing other clients like together. And yeah, so I don't know, it was just yeah, it was just a great way to start. I mean, like it felt, I mean, literally I was probably writing for almost a year before, like a full year before that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not like I wrote that script like overnight,
It
because I
wasn't like
was,
your Rocky story, like you wrote it
yeah.
in
Yeah,
the
yeah. I mean, the only Rocky story was that the only element was that, like, I was just I got it through a blind 1,000 blind letters or inquiry to fucking every agent. Like I papered every agency in New York and LA, and but I got it. But all I needed was one or two people to respond, right?
Mm, right.
And so like so like I decided at that time to just invest reaching out and not take and just to continue to do it as as long as I wasn't like breaking the bank and gonna make myself homeless doing it, right? Um, and then we just started getting just started getting responses.
When
So
you when you started writing and stuff like that in that year, did you have an image in your mind like I'm a screenwriter and this is what I want it to look like, this is what I want for my life? Was it that clear, or was it you kind of
no,
had
no,
some sort of opaque thing? Go ahead.
no, I knew for sure, like and it came to me in during law school,
Oh
because like
wow.
I
Okay.
said, because like I said, like I would script out all, like when I was doing like national moot court competitions and internal school like trial competitions. I literally orchestrated when I was gonna like sit on the table, like I would like where I was gonna sit, how I was gonna
Mm,
act, how I was gonna dress, when I was gonna like go over and maybe sit on the table like in front of the jury, and
right.
like or slam the fucking, like, to get everyone like awake, to like
Right.
slam the table like to punctuate like some kind of argument. And so I kind of had it like I scripted it. I used to script out my 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 arguments, and
So,
yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
yeah. So I was already like creating that character. So then I just put myself into my own movie basically.
Right.
And to use that, because for me, I am not, and I knew this about myself, like some people can just show up and just start fucking talking and brilliance comes out and they
Mm,
smooth and super, right? And I'm not that I typically, and I was knew myself enough that the way that I learned to, like, it's odd because I was very 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 shy kid
yeah.
when I got older, and then I ended up making speech and public speaking like my major.
Wow.
And I think that was me just trying, number one, I liked the subject matter, but what it taught me to is like to just like, who gives a fuck, right? Like what am I afraid of, right? Like the worst thing that could happen is what, right? I say something that doesn't make sense or say something stupid, but what's the upside, right? And then so then and that's when I started doing like my trials, like like a TV fucking lawyer, because I wanted to like I was literally like, I knew when I was going to sit like on the outside of the jury box, and I would literally orchestrate like my whole argument. Like I would just see it, and then I'd embody it, and then I'd right, and it was just really effective. And like I never I never would call myself an actor, right? I would never, but like, but I knew that for me, because I'm not necessarily like I couldn't go up and just ad lib, right? That's not me, especially when it's that kind of, like complex case or something.
Mm.
And I'd memorize the shit out of it. Like I remember I would stay up, like literally I would go to like an empty place in the law school building, like before or before a trial, and I would literally like run my argument for for hours
Wow.
until, and then I'd rewrite it, and say, oh, this could be shorter, it could be tight, like, and I would just be like, have to get like every word like perfect, and then that's also how I memorized it.
I mean, you're basically describing the editing process when you're writing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's it's so
yeah,
interesting, like the shyness, and then you end up being winning public speaking competitions, and then you end up arguing other people's cases in an open courtroom where it's like the stakes are about as high as you can get. Um, it sounds like all of that was really training to get you to be like a screenwriter, right? The structured element. It sounds to me, right? Like
yeah,
when you're when
yeah,
you're when you're accustomed to doing it at that high of a stake, I mean, everything else probably feels like. I mean, there were people's lives on the line, right? Like people
right,
could go on their
yeah,
way to prison for a long time if you got something wrong.
yeah, definitely.
Um, so can you walk me through? You've taken a couple of screenwriting classes, right?
Wait, say that, repeat that.
You've taken a couple of screenwriting classes.
I took, I took one that was like it was at like this little school that was on like the west side of Manhattan. It was like a 6 week course
Mm.
every weekend. Um, so I did that. Um, and then I went to, and then I found, um, and then I found another one in Midtown, and like it was good, like, and then one was like an extension of NYU.
Mm.
They had like a summer arts kind of thing. And I did that, and then and then while I was still in New York, I decided to then see if I could teach one of those classes,
Okay.
because I saw, like, because I was talking to a teacher, and I just said, yeah, maybe I'd like to like teach some of this stuff. And then so so like she let me come in and like take over some classes, which was nice to kind of give me a feel for it. And yeah, so I did that.
So you have, I mean, you didn't like go to a program. You took several classes and stuff, but you've written how many scripts at this point?
25, 30.
25, 30. So like you didn't stay in class forever. You took whatever classes you needed and then you started to write. Is that what you did?
Yeah, yeah, it was, yeah, because once I left, I mean, really, once I left New York, I was not taking classes.
So as soon as you got
Um,
to LA, you were just writing.
yeah, yes, because the because we didn't move out until, like I said, until we had those reps in place,
Yeah.
and then they both, and we had, the manager and the agent, and we were like, yeah, and that's when we just decided to pack the U-Haul
So
and like move out.
what would you say to somebody like, how did you learn? Walk me through a little bit of how you learned the industry, because there was some sort of a learning curve, right? To figure out like, okay, what is the industry looking for? What is a pro level, professional level sort of script and stuff like that? Like, how did you figure out those things?
I mean, for me, again, I think it goes back to like the law school
Mm-hmm.
side of me because like I got used to and very comfortable because I had to as a lawyer ask for right to like give a reason why, right, for lack of a better word, like when you're a lawyer, you're trying to sell your case and your client's story, right?
Mm,
All storytelling. And so I would orchestrate like just everything. And 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 that's how I even like if I just go for say like a random job interview, I'm always thinking like, okay, what's the story I'm gonna tell that's relevant to this job?
wow.
Like, and what of my experiences are going to be most relevant for this job? And then I show up with a couple stories in mind, right? Like so that I'm not just like because that's not me. Because like I said, like I'm not like an improv guy, right? And like so for me, I'm a preparation person, and I need to like and I learned that self about myself because like I said, like my former law school buddy and friend, like that that guy could like just launch like that guy could talk about anything for fucking days,
Mm,
but he also had a huge fucking ego, right?
right.
So he loved to talk, but he was really talented, and he was and it was just a really great partnership. So yeah, and then but since then I've worked with you know with other partners, and currently I have like my like a full-time partner, but we still do stuff like independent of each other.
Nice. Who do you think has more success in the industry? The super prepared people, or the people that can kind of improv a little bit their way through it?
I think they're both I think they're both a skill. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think that I mean, look, like a personality can get you like so far, like you go in the room and like charm the pants off of someone,
Right.
and essentially what happened with my old writing partner and his kind of implosion was he got frustrated with the industry. He got right. He couldn't take the fact that we would like write something and then sell it and then like yeah, it would get sold, but it wasn't necessarily made, but we still made like really good money, right?
Yeah.
Because it was actually sold and it did go into production or like, but um, he wasn't able to hang in with the ups and downs.
Right.
And for him, because he was a former addict, it actually derailed him and he started, and I didn't know, and he started like kind of doing drugs again, like after we had kind of moved out to California. And, so that obviously became an issue because he was then, consumed by that.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that's pretty much why that ended. And it was also like, yeah, I told you, like, he threatened the head of Warner Brothers in a meeting to if he wanted to take it outside. That's what he said over the dumbest thing. And like it was a meeting, like Ice Cube was in the room and all these actors, Martin Henderson and all this. It was a big meeting like for this we wrote uh Tor that movie Torque. And it was like it was the dumbest movie, but we got, it was a great opportunity for us.
Yeah.
And he got in an argument with the head of the studio over like what was in like basically the MacGuffin. It was like a meaningless thing about what was hidden inside of like a hidden compartment in this biker gangs, like they're smuggling shit, right?
Yeah.
And the argument was like, well, is it money or is it cash? And the head of the studio didn't want it to be like we in our script we wrote that was heroin that they were transporting inside of
Yeah.
a hidden compartment in a motorcycle. And the head of the studio was like, um, yeah, I don't know. I'm not very comfortable with that. Why don't can we make it cash? And my writing partner started debating with the head of the studio, with all the talent there, all the executives, and he basically, my former writing partner, freaked out and slammed the table and he said, "Do you want to fucking take it outside?" Like because my writing partner kept pushing back, and the head of the studio was like, "No, this is what I want to do." And he slammed the table, and it was like you hear a pin drop. And we had like 4 or 5 other movies before that headed that were slated for production that didn't get made because the head of the studio was like, "Well, fuck these guys." And I remember like that. So that's when like that, yeah. So I obviously stopped working with my writing partner. But like, so it's one of those things where I look back and I'm like, holy shit, like I should be in a fucking mansion right now. Right? Like, and yeah, so like, yeah, so then I was not, Warner Brothers was like not an open door. I mean, I've since gone back because, people change and people like whatever. And I still have some access, but it just, definitely, I'd probably be fucking retired by now or something, you know what I mean?
What do you, I mean, those sorts of things, some people call them meltdown, some people call them self sabotage or whatever, but I've heard many stories where people get right up to the brink of a major change and then something derails, something deflates, something goes back. What do you think that is when that happens? I mean, you can use this specific instance or whatever, or anything else that you've seen.
So yeah, could you repeat that?
What
Just
do you think it is that was it really about the MacGuffin, or was it do you think it was fear? Do you think it was like, oh, this shit is getting real? Because it sounds like there was major money, there were major opportunities. That was definitely a
Yeah.
next level for you guys.
I think that, well, to be clear, like throughout our partnership, my writing partner would always like we worked together, but there was always he was always very combustible.
Right.
And I remember like the number of times he would come over to my place and he and we'd be like working and then we'd be talking about a scene or right like doing some writing that he would flip out because I'm trying articulating like pushing back on his idea and
Mm,
I'm 100% convinced it's the fucking wrong way to go, right? And the amount of times because he used to well, first, what he started spending all his money on, like I saved my money from what I was making. He
yeah.
spent his money on like fucking cars and motorcycles and all this shit, and like, which is fine, right? He can do whatever he wants. But I remember how many times he would like he'd come to my place when I was living in West Hollywood, and we would get in a fight over some stupid thing that he didn't agree with or he couldn't compromise on in like writing a screenplay, like a fucking fictional story. And the amount of times he would flip out, and I'd hear him in his fucking Mustang with the fucking glass packs, fucking for miles. He'd get in the car, slam it. He'd be like, fuck this, I'm leaving out of here. And I would literally sit in my West Hollywood fucking like apartment, and I would hear him for like 3 hours. I would just hear the sound of his goddamn fucking tricked out fucking Mustang.
Was he driving back
Just
and
like,
forth?
no, I could just hear literally, okay. It would probably be a good like 3, 4, 5 minutes where I'm hearing, and he leaves like he's screeching his fucking tires out of the fucking driveway, like the whole fucking thing. And I would just hear this like getting lower and lower and lower, and then it would like vanish, and I'd be like, what the fuck? And like, but I was like, dude, we're just making shit up. Like, what are you so angry about?
Right.
Right? Like, let's just figure out the solution that works for both of us. And that's what my whole take is like when I work with writing partners. Like, that's the commitment that you have to make. But he wasn't willing to. He didn't understand that. Like, he thought he was just going to barrel his way through, and that's how it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was like his downfall, because then it showed up in that meeting with like the executives at Warner Brothers.
Do you think that being able to play well with others is an important skill to develop?
Oh, it's 100%. And I mean, yeah, I don't. I mean, it's hard enough to get anyone to like give a shit out here,
Mm.
right? And so when you do get the opportunity, like, you definitely have to. I mean, like it or not, you have to like show up respectful and diligent and hardworking, and never. I mean, obviously, never yell at a fucking executive, right? Like, keep your cool, because it's not like we're saving lives,
Yeah.
right? We're telling stories, which, yes, are valuable, and yes, are impactful, and yes, can teach people things, and all those things, you know. But God, is it like worth just all that anger and frustration? And how is that helping? At least that's, again, I guess that's just getting maybe my personal philosophy.
What do you think it is? I mean, I'm sure you've met creatives that take it like life, and clearly your scene partner, but that's something that I've run into as well myself. And I'm not going to say I haven't been the guy that's like, this is the thing, right? But like,
Right.
how do we how can we care about something and also be detached enough to just do what you did and said, hey, can we let's find a way that works for the both of us?
Yeah, I think it's about. I think when you what a lot I think the what a lot of writers will do is they're gonna like they have a good idea, right? And sometimes even like the suggestion of like changing parts of it could even be too much, right?
Hmm.
Because they are maybe like really attached to what they've created,
Okay.
and they're not willing to like step outside of their perspective and try to get into the perspective of the person who has like the comment or the note, no matter how big or small it is. And for me, I love getting notes. And like, if I get a note, I'm conscious enough to say, um, like, I know when I'll disagree, it, and but I know that, but before I disagree, I don't just disagree. I try to understand the person's perspective and then have a conversation. And then ultimately, if, depending on if I'm just like writing it alone, like say you and I were talking and we as friends, and we were talking about the story, and then I told you like, yeah, I can't figure the story out, and then you gave me a suggestion and blah blah blah, and we had like a give and take. Like, that's, I think, is like a comfortable place to be, because then it's not like you were hired on the script. It's not like it's your script, right? And there's like, what are the stakes feel like they should be relatively small,
Mm.
right? To just have a creative conversation. And yeah, and I always just remind myself that like we're just making shit up for fun. And like is like we can either find a middle ground, and if we can't find a middle ground, when if I'm working with like another person, then we just go our separate ways, or we don't work on this project together, and then we decide, you're right, and maybe it's just we have just totally different visions for this one thing. So I don't know if that directly answered your question or not.
No, that was great. Is that something that you learned through experience, or an attitude you've had since the beginning?
I think because of the extremity of the extremes that my first writing partner went through, like had, in terms of his explosions and his blowups, and his unpredictability. I definitely am much more careful about the people I choose to work with. And so like if I get that attitude, like I'm just like, no thanks. Like, I now only choose to work with people who are open-minded and patient, and and just kind of have that balance.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
would you say to somebody who finds himself in a situation with a writing partner? Maybe there's been a bunch of work, maybe they've produced certain things, and they're starting to notice certain like red flags in them, like that. How best to navigate that situation? If you have any practical advice where for them.
I think it's just has like any any conflict or any, I think it's just to be like direct
Mm-hmm.
and honest, but to the avoid triggering words, like to really choose carefully, instead of just like, because I'll never just like, if I like randomly call someone, like if there's like an issue between us, like I'll sit there and I'll just figure out like what is it that I want to say, and then I'm asking myself is like, if I bring this thing up, is this going to just antagonize the situation or piss them
Mm.
off? And so how can I communicate this without without like, stepping onto like some kind of fucking trap door, so that's why I show up with humility, and I don't, I like I never force opinion. I never force like my point of view on someone. I might say, can we take more time to talk about this, right? Because maybe I'm not sure you're hearing me, or I'm not sure, like, maybe I'm not making sense. So do you mind if I kind of go through it again? And so like I'm trying to role model like the collaborative process, which is, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, and communication isn't perfect, and getting communication, which includes screenwriting, takes a lot of fucking work, and like a lot of drafts, and a lot of like to get it like right. And I think that's what's made me, allowed me to sell stuff, is that I don't just, I think that some people give up maybe on a script because they're either tired of it, they're not feeling like they're nailing it, they're getting like, for whatever reason. But I think that it's all about, if you're, we're all going to get tired, we're all going to get sick of like reading the script again, then take a fucking break. Like put the script down for a month, right? And then look at it a month later, like forget about looking at it the next day, like take time away from it, and then you'll maybe be able to see it differently because you're so in like what you were creating, and maybe it's not working, and you're not getting it to where you feel like you want it to be because you're just stuck on what it currently is. And then maybe it's like, well, how can I, like, what is it? And you just have to like try, like feel it, feel your way through it, and then try to figure out what it is that's either for sure that's working, and then you may have to question like other parts of it. So I'm always saying, do I love this? And if I don't love it, I know I'm going to have to come back to that, right? I need to love it, right? And I need to feel good about it. So it's like that kind of relentlessness of not being okay with it, but I want to love it. And I think a lot of writers just want to like have a tendency to just be okay with it, and that's their barrier. But I'm like, I want to fucking love all of it
Do you
if
fall
possible. Right?
do you fall in love with it because you've put love into it, or do you fall in love with it because it's a story you really resonate
Yeah. So
into it,
yeah.
meaning the work? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. So I will look at lines that I know are fucking great lines,
Mm,
but I'll read them again and say, yeah, yeah, that's a fucking great line, right? At least in my opinion,
right.
right? And as long as I love it, I'm assuming other people are going to love it,
Right.
and I don't need everyone to love it to sell it or to want for other people to want to see it or whatever it is. And if I just think that the odds are is that, like, say you give it to a friend who's going to be like give you a good read and not like he's going to give you the soft read because you're a friend and he might not tell you all the things he didn't like. Like I always ask, I'm like, I want to know if you fucking hate anything, if you don't like it, if it's not working, fucking kick the shit out of me. Like, tell me exactly how you feel.
Mm,
And so when I ask for notes from people, like, I'm like, don't be nice to me. It's like I want to hear like your real thoughts. Because so when I ask people like read my material, because yeah.
when you ask people to read your material, are they primarily screenwriters, other creatives, other producers, or do you kind of mix it up a little bit?
Yeah, it depends like where and who in the stage. I mean, now because my manager, I go through my manager first.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then then we'll start like setting up meetings and stuff like that, and then we'll get other opinions, and yeah, and like I said, like the good thing is me and my writing partner have like figured out our process, so I think we're in a very solid place, fortunately.
Nice. Can you walk us through real quick uh, the process of writing a script and selling a script? Obviously, you're in a place where I would imagine that you have systems in place where they already know, the industry knows you and understands you. But say someone is not as experienced as you, maybe hasn't optioned as many scripts, but they feel like they have a great story. They might have an opportunity to meet some industry people. How best for them to maximize their chances of selling one of their screenplays, getting it produced?
I think, I mean, I think that, um, I think you can do, it's a combination of things. And again, it's, I would try everything possible from like looking, because there's, you could find out which agents or managers are open to submissions.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, I'd be like going down, through those lists. I'd be papering the town with those. I'd be, for a while, I was definitely going to like industry, like get-togethers. Like I'd look, I'd go online and I'd look to see if there's any, like industry gatherings or meetups that, right. And I've met some like decent people like through there. And, um, and then of course, like the blind letters of just like inquiry to like agents and just writing like, and just writing that like letter to like, but brief, like you don't want to bury them. Like
Mm,
don't send like the first thing is don't send a script. The first thing you send is a maybe like a 1 page or 2 page like letter describing your project and why you think it would be good for either that agent, the manager, or the production company, like wherever it's being sent to, and and but definitely don't send a script and because people freak out if you send them like an unsolicited script.
okay.
So yeah, like so, I mean, some companies might say they're okay with it, right? They're open as long as it's just saying they're open to it, like because there are, especially now with just digital everything. It's probably a lot easier for them to get submissions that way, so they're not like covered in like paper,
Mm,
you know. So yeah, so I would definitely just explore like how people like, because they'll tell you how they like material to be submitted normally. So
nice.
um,
Uh,
yeah,
well, do you have any more parting words of wisdom from your successful career and life experience?
I mean, I think it's you just have to like really I mean, you have to just like really trust your instincts and make sure that you're writing for yourself, but be open, definitely like stay open to the points of view and the feedback from other people. And then you can make that choice, because I think as a writer, I think our whole being is to be open and to be more of a sponge, right? And to like take everything in and process it, and then we could take what we want out of it. So I'll always listen. Like I'll never shut someone down and like prematurely, because I'll never know where other what I'll never know like where it might have gone, right? And then yeah, but then like life, at a certain point, right? You can't talk to someone forever, and if it's taking forever, it might not be a good idea, because a good idea you could usually pitch very fucking quickly. Like that's the other side of it, is that's why the one liners work so well, or the log lines, because if you're doing it right, it's like it's like a magic door just open,
Mm,
because all of a sudden, like it's just like clearly like that's a fucking great idea, right? So it's not necessarily at the point of when you're developing stuff that more is better. It's it's just, you'll know, like when the execution is right, that's when you'll know it's better, if that makes sense.
that makes total sense, man. Yeah, you've definitely dropped some nuggets, man. I really appreciate your time today and all your experience. And I love that story. If I ever have a son, I'll tell him there's a big fat hairy woman outside. He's not behaving himself. Uh,
Right.
uh,
We'll definitely do that.
to
That's
keep
what I want.
it.
That's what I want my legacy to be on the rest of the world. I want to be the terrorist of children.
Awesome, Kevin. Where can we find your stuff if people want to hire you as a screenwriter or as a coach or just to learn about you?
Yeah, I have my email, which is just basically kpolay at me.com.
Okay.
And then I do have, you can find me on my personal website, and you can find me in various places, online. I've kind of, made sure that, someone can like look me up and find me in like different ways.
Nice. And
Yeah.
we're going to include that stuff in the description anyway, as well. So
Okay.
people can get in contact with you. And awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. This is fantastic. Guys, check out his stuff. His website is great. There's a lot of really good stuff on there. So thank you, man. All right.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you
See you,
soon.
man.
Bye.
All right. Yep.